Hey guys, I want to ask you for a favor. I'm at home currently, and I shouldn't be. Why? Because I'm deep in refeeding syndrome, meaning that I just survived a 66-day hunger strike, a wet one, meaning I could drink water but not eat food. And it was hard. It was very, very hard. In fact, it became a dry hunger strike at the end because on day 62, my organs started to shut down. My stomach would stop taking water. So I didn't have any food or water, and then you start puking every 2 to 3 hours. So that was very hard on me. And then we achieved the goal thanks to our Kenyans. 170 of them got together and achieved the blessing last minute. It really was last minute. I would have died this week. But I didn't. So as soon as we met the goal, my friend, she actually left home early. She saw we were going to meet this goal. We have this special software to save your life from this mega crisis. It worked. So she drove over, and by the time she arrived at my place, the goal had been achieved, and I jumped in her car, and we went to the hospital, the U of A hospital, a few minutes away from me. And we got into the waiting room, and you would think that no food for 66 days, or 65 days actually, would cause alarm in the emergency department. And it didn't. And I sat there for 2 hours, puking my guts out on the verge of death. So I don't know what's going on at the U of A, but I did eventually get in after we complained heavily to say, hey, like, if this guy doesn't really qualify for emergency treatment, can you tell us what does? Like, does he have to go for 100 days? Like, does he have to be in a coma to be, it was absurd. And it's because the systems are crumbling here. They're treating the emergency ward like a family doctor room because nobody can find family doctors. All the doctors abandoned people here in Alberta. Okay, so the thing I'd like you to do, if you don't mind, is they're making me manage my own blood. I had a bit of an altercation with some of the doctors. Well, yeah. And the nurses were sort of covering up the fact that there were some accidents happening, and I didn't feel good about it. So I kind of confronted them very gently. I said, hey, whenever somebody hits the emergency button on their bed thing, don't ignore it. And they ignored mine 3 times when I was choking because they neglected this woman, and then she had a big accident. It took 3 hours, and it disrupted all the food trays. And then the food tray people ran into our rooms, were yelling at us, why don't you finish your trays yet? And we're like, because we just got them. Because they couldn't get past the bed that was all destroyed and something happened. So they weren't filling up the waters. And it's when you're on a hunger strike like this, the water is necessary because your throat dries out so fast. It's really weird. But anyway, I thought I could sneak in a little salad without having water near me. And I ate a piece of lettuce and it got stuck and I started choking. And so I was hitting this button for them to come check on me. Like, they're literally like 10 feet away from me on like 2 curtains down with this old lady. And I'm pressing this button, and this woman gets up and she goes and she turns it off, and then she goes back to help the woman. And I'm like, what the heck? In my head. And then I press it again, and she goes up and she turns it off and she goes back to the woman. And I'm like, what the heck? And I can't walk, right? So I'm stuck in this bed. So I push it a 3rd time, and I'm waiting there, and she goes and she turns it off again and doesn't check on me. It goes right back to the other one. I understand the other woman needs help, but when you see somebody ring an emergency bell 3 times like that, probably in an emergency, 10 minutes later, they came into my room and checked on me. And luckily, the thing had dislodged from my throat, the piece of lettuce. And I was sitting there angry. I could be dead. I could have been suffocated. And it was just such a precarious situation because I can barely move already. Do you know what I mean? It's like all of these wrong things all piled up at once. So I just kind of gently said, hey, look, something very serious just happened. I want it to be written down so it never happens again. And it's that you should never ignore these emergency buttons if people are pressing them over and over again. And this old woman was. So compassion fatigue had happened to them because the hospital is overwhelmed. So I feel blessed that I even got in there, and they're all, they all think I'm stupid because I'm activating my charter rights, right? So they think it's a joke. But like, there's people who really need help, Mark, and you're wasting a bed, and No, the reality is the reason why there is no beds is because nobody does what I'm doing, which is fight for your rights. Do you know what the price of freedom is? Eternal vigilance. And you guys, we are not meeting that. Our generation has become complacent and rude, to be honest, and entitled. Our ancestors had to fight and risk their lives for minimum wage. Okay? You got vacation pay. People had to risk death for that. Women had to risk they died on hunger strikes so that women could vote. That's how crazy our species is and how far we've come. And we have a long way to go. But if you think a hunger strike of 66 days is not an honorable activity of peaceful revolution to fix the crappy situation that we're in, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Okay? Sitting in your house, watching TV and complaining is not activism. Walking down the street is not working. We've had 100,000 people walk down streets and we still don't have a climate plan that's going to work in time. Okay? Stop being naive. You have to do something extreme because we're in an extreme situation. That doesn't mean extremely violent because you're going to get crushed. We need something intelligent and wise. And a hunger strike is the only thing legally that protects you that way. Okay? So, can you watch over me tonight? If you appreciate what I'm doing here, I could be doing a lot more fun things than sitting for 2 months not eating. It's not easy. Okay? I'm going to be laying in my bed on live stream on my YouTube channel. And if I'm not moving, can you call 911 and just make sure that I survive? Because I have to take these sodium phosphate tablets in an effervescent way, like the bubbling things. So it's ultra available to me because when I went in last to get my blood tested, it was all over. It was low. It was all over the place. Even though I was eating as much as I could, which means I shouldn't be home right now. I shouldn't be doing this. When I went online to ask AI and Claude and Google like where to find this sodium phosphate micro basic stuff, it immediately wouldn't tell me. It said, no, this is too dangerous. Like this you do not manage your own refeeding syndrome after 66 days. Even I know that. I can manage up to 28 days and you have energy, you can still walk and do all these things. 66 days was death, puking. It was like the far most extreme one I've done besides the 14 days without water. They're actually pretty equal. The water was still a little worse, to be honest. But it said that it wouldn't tell me how to get these because a doctor at an emergency ward should be doing it and watching my blood every day. And the U of A wouldn't. I actually called 811 and I was afraid to go to bed the first night they sent me home. I actually had to escape this ward and there was peace officers. I had to get the site managers because they were all kind of manipulating me and thinking I would just go along with this lying. They weren't reporting the incidents that I almost choked and what happened to this woman. They wouldn't tell the doctors. The nurses were covering it up. So I gave them like 2 or 3 chances. I said, no, you really actually have to write that down somewhere. And I'm requesting my medical notes printed so that it's proven that the doctor knows that this has happened. Because it can't happen again. And they said, oh, yeah, okay, sorry, Mr. McCarty, yeah, okay. 10 hours later, around midnight, found out the doctors didn't know. The charge nurse didn't even know. So anyway, that freaked me out. I said, okay, we have some lying nurses in this ward. What else is going to get covered up here? All right, I'm leaving. I'm going to a different ward. I want a different doctor too. And they wouldn't do it. Oh, you got to wait till the morning. I might be dead in the morning. Who knows what's going to happen here? This woman starts shouting, and then they said, we'll never neglect you again. An hour later, she's still in bed needing to use the washroom. And nobody, it's just, I didn't like it. And so it took me to call, I had to call the police. I had to call the switchboards. I had to call everybody. And I got out of there. And the head people of the hospital both came down and were very rude to me. And I said, I'm getting out of here. I'm voluntary on mission. I'm getting out of here. And here's my reason why. I don't want reports about it. So they didn't like that. And they wouldn't accept me back. So I went to a different hospital. And they admitted me after being in a lineup for 10 hours. I spent 40 hours in lineups. So I ended up going back. You guys, I got discharged from that hospital because they were full. And I was at home and I was like, I had a bad feeling. was about to go to sleep. It was about 1:30 in the morning. And my neck is hurting. And I remember what the security guard, the peace officer, said to me. He said, "They're lying to you." I said, "I know. This is messed up. I don't know if like this, something's messed up." And he's a witness, so he's going to write a report. But he said, "Call this 811 number. There's registered nurses there." And so that memory, I thought of it. I was going to go to sleep, because this is where you go into a food coma and you die if you have repeating syndrome and your blood's all out of whack. And I'm the only one here right now. So by myself, and I thought, oh, I should probably call that number. So I called that 811 number, and there was a registered nurse 24/7, you guys. It's an actual real service here in Alberta, Canada. And I called it, and I was like, "Oh, you're a real nurse?" She said, "Yeah, tell me your symptoms. I can actually make recommendations for you." And I said, "Oh, okay." And I said, "Yeah, I feel a little bit dizzy still and weak, and it's only been like 3 or 4 days of since I was puking on day 66 with no food, right? It's hasn't even been half week." And I said, "Yeah, I'm a little bit dizzy, and my hand is going, I can't really feel my pinky and this finger, and my whole hand is numb here." And I said, and she said, "Is your left hand doing the same thing?" I said, "No, my left, everything else is fine. This is the only numb thing." And she said, "Oh, that's a 911 call." I said, "What do you mean it's a 911 call?" She said, "That could be a neurological damage, or it could be your ulnar nerve. You got to go and find out which one. It's just automatic 911 call." And I said, "So what does that mean? Should I take an ambulance?" She said, "Yeah, call the ambulance. I'm going to make a recommendation, make all the medical notes here. I'm a registered nurse. I'm going to tell them I told you to do this, and I think you should go now." And I thought, oh, okay. I'm getting the heck out of here, because I feel weird, right? I don't know why my hand, it's still hurting, guys. It's been 3 days more, and I still can't feel it properly. It's not going away. And so I get in this ambulance. They come literally within 5-10 minutes. I didn't even have time to prepare or anything. And we grabbed a couple little goodie bags that my friends bought me. Anyway, we went to the hospital. I waited 18 hours in line, despite coming in the ambulance. They don't like me there, I guess. And I sat with the most packed emergency room they've ever had there. There's 2 waiting rooms. And even though I was the first one that got there at around 1:30 in the morning, I didn't get in until 9 or 10 o'clock at night. They put over 200 people ahead of me. And I'm sitting there in a medical life or death situation with my hands doing weird. So I don't know. I was the longest one they made wait. The next was 16 hours. I was 18 hours. I was the longest one. And remember, I was laying in bed for 2 months. So I had no stabilizer muscles. I'm weak. And I had to sit in this wheelchair for 18 hours upright with this headache brewing. It was torture. It was literal torture. I gave people bananas, and I kind of held it together as best as I could. And by the time I got back there was no beds left, and there was no food left. So I had to sleep in a recliner. I had to stay upright again. And luckily I had some pickled stuff, but I'm not supposed to be eating pickled stuff at this point. I was supposed to have real food. So we had eaten the bananas and stuff, and that got me through. I think I had 2 or 3 bananas in 18 hours. And there was a diabetic woman, so I started giving her my bananas, because she didn't want to leave, because they're draconian. If they called your name and you weren't there, you lost your turn, even if you were waiting there for 16 hours. It was weird, man. It was like something dystopic. So I was actually quite angry, because then I'm already uncomfortable. My butt was I have no padding on my butt, you guys. I'm starving. I'm 40 pounds underweight. So I had all this pain, and it was bad. And then all of a sudden I had to sit on it again. So here we are. They didn't have a bed for me, and they sent me home with no food. I actually begged the woman, "Can I at least?" I said, I'm the only one in this hospital where my injury is hunger. I'm the only one here just because I need to eat, and I'm not getting any food. It's astronomical. They're retaliating because I escaped them, and they were retaliating and said they were offended that their destruction and client control and all this weird paternalism and patronizing, it didn't work on me because I knew my rights. But then they just got rid of me entirely. And so I did their patient relations process and all this it doesn't work. None of it works. None of it. The only thing you can do is a lawsuit. It's all a distraction. And I kind of already knew that, but I tried to be as amicable as possible because I am afraid for my life. So the doctors wrote me these tablet things, and they said, take these, put them in water, and drink it, and then take some vitamin B1, thiamine, which is, you don't even need a prescription for this. Already B1's for like vitamin 1, right? Vitamin B1. So anyway, I tried as hard as I could to stay there, and one of the nurses was nice, and she did get me one piece of toast with a little bit of cream of wheat and a soy milk box. So they cut the piece of bread in half to make it look like it was 2 pieces of bread, but it was really just one piece of white bread. That was fake bread. It's not real bread. And I said, do I have time to eat this? And she's like, yes, you have time to eat this. I'm like, great. And I'm about to eat it, and then all of a sudden they send in this woman. She says, I'm the charge nurse and the site director of the emergency department. You have to go. And I said, yeah, but I was told I was allowed to eat this tray at least. And she said, yeah, no. And then she sicked the security guard on me, took my tray away, and then hauled me out of there. I didn't even get to finish the food that they tricked me into disarming me with, and then removed me entirely. And all I did was want to eat under supervision and sleep under supervision for a week until I was actually getting my stores up, because they're pumping my blood up and it looked good in a snapshot. And I go home and I use it all up and I have no stores. So it drops, which is what's happening now. So I don't know if that's neglectful. I don't know. I don't feel right about it. I feel like there's a lot of ego and clouding people's judgments. So this is sort of a 16-minute ask of, I'm going to lay down in probably 5 hours from now at around midnight, and I might try and work as long as possible. Maybe I won't even go to sleep tonight. I'll just stay awake. You know, it's been 2 days of me, like the first day is okay because they topped up my blood. So the first night I wasn't really worried. It's the second and third night that it starts to get wonky, right? Because it's your body's using it and you're not sure if your food's enough to replace what you're burning, because the more food you eat, actually, the more it forces the food into the cell, out of the blood, and it drops your phosphorus. So, you know, it's like I don't know what's going on, right? I can't check my blood every day. I'm doing a blood test tomorrow. I just got to make it through the night to get to the blood test. And that's the contradiction they didn't understand. They said, just go get a blood test. I said, yeah, but if I die overnight, I can't do the blood test. You know, like I have to do the blood test before I go to sleep, but I can't do it every day. So it's, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel right. So I guess as my ask is, I'll be on the stream there on YouTube. Just go to Spirit Peaceful Revolution. You'll see I put a couple of pictures of like my body. I'm still underweight. So, and I have a full meal, like my stomach shrunk, but my torso is full as I can make it. So, and I still look the way I look there. So I have a long ways to go to recover still. It hasn't even been a week. So, and my hand still hurts. So the 811 they had a nurse recommend me go in there in an ambulance, and they don't care. So, and charter rights aren't respected. It's just bizarre. It's weird. You know, people have lived and died to get the charter rights and freedoms in our country. That's what makes it great to be here. And it's just, we're not in a good situation. Okay, so thank you very much. You can look at the other videos. I put my entire blood results there. They are getting better. It's just that, why are they rushing me so much? I said, I'll go back on the internal medicine ward, just not with that nursing team, the one that's like lying and covering things up. They have 10 teams. There's 2 there. Those 2 I'm saying I don't want to be a part of. But the other 8 teams, I have no problem with them. Just move me there. I'm happy to go there. And they're just like hammering me. It's just a weird thing. So, and they said, well, don't fight back in the hospitals. That's why they suck. That's why people die from complacency or burnt out physicians. Or you need to be assertive. You need to get the system into the place where it won't erode like that. And that requires you to be vigilant, okay? Kind, but don't be a pushover if you know something is wrong, okay? You can save someone's life. Okay, so that's it. You can go look at those yourself. I had AI go over it, and AI said the same thing. It's like, why are you doing this by yourself? I have to. They don't like me. And all I'm trying to do is get them better wages too, and get them better benefits, because the system is collapsing on them too. But change is always difficult, right? Human ignorance is really a sad thing. Okay, so it's been 20 minutes. I'm sore, and there's more I want to tell you, but for now, I hope that's enough to ask you for that favor. And I think we'll know more tomorrow. If my blood is okay, then I should be okay, right? And if it's not okay, I'm going to go back to the hospital and wait for another 18 hours. Okay. For those who have been supporting me, thank you so much. I want to say thank you to Amanda especially, and Tantra, who actually gave me money to go and buy these drugs. It's like $60, this kind of stuff. Why am I paying my taxes? You know what I mean? Like I'm doing it all myself anyway. It's not like it's hard enough to go and do the hunger strikes and delay my personal life to go and do all this activism. But now I gotta pay for all this. And, there's people who are in there because they want to smoke and they want to eat until they can't, until they're obese or they're getting heart attacks. And that's not very honorable. We're there to help people, but a hunger strike to save lives and stop the mega crisis is a pretty virtuous act compared to other cases where it might not be as legitimate. It might just be self-harm, right? There are some legitimate cases, mothers giving birth, seniors needing care. That's different. But we need to have more honor in our societies, you guys. We need more people doing this kind of stuff. Don't just be bystanders. Okay, we have a very short period of time to address Claude Mythos and CRISPR and genetic editing in World War III, climate change, mental health, and cultural decline. That's why this is happening at the hospital. The culture is in decline. And we all noticed it. There's like 200 people in this waiting room. We all were talking about it and bonding over like what was going on. So it's very pervasive. Like people know you can't put your head in the sand anymore, right? Okay, and I want to say thanks to Tantra and to Roy, who actually picked me up when they tricked me, and I thought he was coming over to have a little meal with me as they were putting me into a new ward, and they totally tricked me. And he ended up driving me home. Luckily, he came there just in time for this. And I was like, wow, that kind of worked out. You're kind of laughing about it, but it was also very sad and tragic. And even the security guard actually took my apple juice off my tray and put at least the apple juice or whatever in my bag that I didn't get to drink. He didn't give the soy box and the rest of the food, but he did one thing because he knows I'm right. He knows. I've had the police tell me that they're sick and tired of what they see in the courthouses and in these places they work in, and the sheriffs too. Those guys are the ones that take the brunt of when the public gets mad, right? They're the ones that have to go babysit and take the heat under the lack of trust. Because every time you screw over the public and they know that they're being screwed over, it ruins the trust in the system and they act out somewhere else. So they see this over and over and over again. So, I can't really blame the guards. They're just being told they're the fall guys. So we got to share as much love as we can because it's really a system problem. And I have a much better system. In fact, we've tested it. Saved my life this time with the Kenyans. So, okay, I'm just going on now. Stay blessed. I have more thank yous to give for sure, especially to Sahan in Kenya, and to my family who bought some groceries, to Justin who actually stepped up a little bit, even though some of the gaslighting bothers me a lot. He really came through this time as well with the omega-3s. They weren't giving me a vegan omega-3s in the meals either. It's been 70 days of fat in my brain. Please give me some of the essential nutrients. They're like, we don't have vegan options. I said, how can you not have vegan options? It's a public hospital. So thanks to them, I actually got some brain nutrition. I'm like, you guys, I'm worried about brain damage. can I get some nutrients? So thanks, Justin. And there's more people to thank. The movement is growing. So, I mean, it's working. It's just excruciatingly painful. But it's a price worth paying because you're sacred, and I proved it. I proved it. Okay? All right. Thank you. If I can ask you for this one favor, see you tonight. You can leave comments in the chat. And I should make it. I should make it. It should be, you know. Who knows? I've never done 66 days before. I don't know if very many people survive that. I feel blessed that I survived. So, okay, destiny awaits. Thank you so much. See you on the next video.